I like the way this feel. Yeah. Let my soul cry. Yeah. Minister. We gonna speak from the heart on this one. I'm performing lyrical funerals, no obituary. I killed your boy and brought him back to life. Pet cemetery. My anointing not based on attendance at a seminary. Scarlet witches, they attracted to the visionary. Everywhere I go, I bring the word with me, missionary. Soldiers drafted in the war machine, military. Pay attention, what I'm saying to you, legendary. You got the demeanor of a front desk secretary. That mean you take the calls, but you don't make the calls. That's why you hate, cause ain't nothing fake about me at all. Now I dare you try to say that with a straight face. My delivery in tip-top great shape. I'm too advanced for you, light years, space age. No evolution for you cavemen, stone age. I'm a thoroughbred, rock solid. I came from the bottom to the top, rock climbing. I grew up in the hood, pros and cons. That's that full court pressure when the ambulance roll out their stretch. Why can't you see it's not logical? If you live diabolical. Boy, your point of view smaller than the hair follicle molecule. This for all of them that follow you, smoking all of them barbecue. When I pull up, your voice on correct itself with no auto-tune. I got a whole nother level that I can enter whenever I gotta deal with the devil. I pick a whole nother method. I hear a whole lot of yapping. They wanna see my reaction. I'm really out here in the community making it happen. I don't really think they understand the dilemma. They ain't looking at the man in the mirror. Can't say it in the clearer. The plan is very simple. It's time to start playing in the temple. Before somebody come and put the can on your temple. Reaching like a baby with his hand for the nipple. The Grand Reaper coming with his hand on the circle. In the van coming with a ram with it. With the van coming get him. I am so glad that I changed up. Made it out of where I came from. Watch for the slide and the hook of the slow ball, fastball, and that change up. That ghetto lifestyle, it changed us. Go back to visit, it ain't changed much. Only difference is now the way that my brain process information. And Satan, been after my license day one. Let me say something. Only reason that I'm still alive today because God's grace is amazing. Just another raisin in the sun. Dream deferred when things occurred. Now you getting served right on the curb like a lemonade stand. I just gave you the benediction, let the whole church say amen.
Peace. What it is, it's your brother Tyvon Sueno, a.k.a. the Orthodox Moor, a.k.a. the Seven Pillar Saracen, a.k.a. Brother Moore. And got an interesting conversation this morning. I was watching another Studios the other day, and I noticed some Christian apologists jump on to go deal with some Kemetic stuff. Shout out to Vocab, Malone. Shout out to Adam Coleman. And in their conversation with Jabari, I noticed a very interesting book pop out. Matter of fact, it's a book I got on my shelf. And it was a book having to do with early Islamic sources in West Africa. And the brother Adam Coleman was talking about how it cites a Christian presence in pre-colonial West Africa. And I thought it was interesting. And he was talking about how we need to respect West African traditions, and Christianity apparently being one of them, etc. So I thought that was a very interesting situation, being that a lot of Christians and a lot of Israelites don't know that there's a multitude of Islamic sources that actually confirm an Israelite presence in West Africa, pre-colonial West Africa at that. And so I'll play the clip real quick for y'all family, and then I'm going to show a couple slides and then jump off. I ain't gonna make this too long. I just thought this was an interesting conversation. I'm gonna get into it a bit more in depth tomorrow on Debate Talk for You. But with that, family, let me play this and get right into it. Bam. Bam. And I got this video linked down below for the family if they want to go check it out when they're done. Shout out to everybody on the panel. If you're interested in Kemetic information, go check out Jabari. If you're interested in urban apologetics, go check out the Vocab and Adam Coleman channels on the bottom. And if you're interested in information in like the African American conscious community and whatnot, definitely go check out Sonetta channel, Sonetta Studios and whatnot. But without further ado, let's go. Let's check this out.
If I'm going to take on your worldview, I'm jumping out of the frying pan into the fire, because at the end of the day, the one in your theology, if we follow it to its logical conclusions, we have to say that the one is responsible for all the evils that you're talking about. Lastly, it's not true that all of our ancestors came into Christianity as a result of the bullwhip. I have a book right here in my hand called The Corpus of Early Arabic Sources for West African History. And on page 250, we have an excerpt from a letter in which Mansa Musa attests to there being Christians in his kingdom of Mali going back to the 1300s. Again, that's Corpus of Early Arabic Sources for West African History. That's at least a century before any European set foot in West Africa, snatched up anybody for slavery. So there were Christians in West Africa. There we go. There were Christians in West Africa prior to the transatlantic slave trade by the attestation of Mansa Musa. We all know who he is, King of Mali. And so you can't say that, oh, we just came into this because of change. That's not true. And I think it's a shame that you're misrepresenting your Christian West African ancestors like that. And we need to honor their heritage just like you would any other tradition.
Now, could I share my screen a little bit?
No, you spoke, he spoke, now I speak.
I didn't share my screen. Well, I wasn't asking.
Yeah, I thought that was a very, very interesting little bit right there. Like I said, I actually have that book on my shelf, and when I do the stream tomorrow, I'm gonna go a bit more in depth on that, because there's more sources in that book that talk about Israelites in West Africa, like in Ghana and other places and whatnot. But I got that book at the behest of Dana Marnici. You've seen me interview her a few times. She has fantastic literature she's put forth into the community, and she has a lot to say in terms of the migration patterns of people through Africa, particularly going into West Africa. And she has a lot of interesting information concerning the Islamic sources that cite Israelite presences in Arabia, West Africa, North Africa, etc. And so I'll be going more in depth into that book and what she has to say about it tomorrow. But today I wanted to just jump on something very basic. So if now we're using Islamic sources to cite a presence of or Christian presence in pre-colonial West Africa, it becomes very usable to use the same sources to show Israelite presence in West Africa. And so they were talking about the kingdom of Mali, and they were talking about Mansa Musa, etc. And so in Mali, they have some very interesting literature that they have historically and whatnot. And so let me just share my screen right quick, and we can get right into this. Oh, hold on, let me get to my joint. My fault, family. Give me 2 seconds. There we go. Let me stop sharing this. Stop sharing this. And share this. Damn. Good money. So I'm talking about Israelite migration from Yemen to Mali through the Timbuktu Chronicles. Again, these are historical attestations from Mali, from the same place that the brother was citing information from. So the Timbuktu Chronicles, i.e., the Tariq al-Sudan and Tariq al-Fatash, are are some chronicles that you can go look at, or that you can see. There's physical things, right? You can get copies of these things. They're lit, all that type of stuff. You can get translations of these things, all that type of stuff. But it's a history of the Sudan. Is a West African chronicle written in Arabic by Berber author Abd al-Rahman al-Sadi. It is a primary historical source for the Songhai Empire. And that's going to get real interesting in stuff I bring out with Dana Marnici and the stuff that she showed me and whatnot. Very interesting information about the Songhai. It also speaks of prior Songhai dynasties among the Mali Empire and the Tuareg. There's a lot of interesting information concerning the Tuareg and Israelites as well. That Sister Dana Marnici gave me information for, particularly the fact that there was Israelites that dwelt among the Tuareg. But yeah, Al-Sadi was the chief secretary of the Arma administration of Timbuktu. So these are the chronicles of the chief secretary in Timbuktu. And this is what the Tariq al-Sudan has to say. It chronicles the founder of the Za or the Zua dynasty, and it was by a man called Zua al-Yaman or Al-Yaman. This is the meaning of his name, right? Za al-Yamin or Za al-Yemeni, meaning he came from Yemen. Okay, so the Tariq al-Sudan is giving information for somebody who came through from Yemen and founded a dynasty over there. Zua al-Yaman is said to have migrated from Yemen and settled in the town of Kukiya in Mali. Okay, and again, this is the Tariq al-Sudan on the right. Local legends state that Zua al-Yaman was a member of the Jewish communities that migrated from Yemen after the Aksumite Ethiopians defeated the Jewish king of Himyar, Yusuf II Nawas, in the 6th century, circa 525. Circa 525. So Adam Coleman was citing Christians coming in from Christians in West Africa in the 1300s. Right. This is talking about a migration from Yemen to West Africa from the Himyarite kingdom in the 500s. In the 500s, in the 6th century, in the 500s. And if you've seen my prior work, you know that I've interviewed people like Cohen Hamandishe and have shown migration patterns that they've done to where they went from Yemen to South Africa, and then also documented the fact that between their story and Tudor Parfit, they were able to uncover that there were multiple migrations out of Yemen from that Israelite population. So when you do the history on the Himyarite kingdom, you see that they're an Israelite kingdom. And they are an Afro-Asiatic Israelite kingdom. They are a dark-skinned Afro-Asiatic people. And so we can see to where, like, how people migrated from Yemen to South Africa and blended in with African populations there. And so we see here that the Tariq al-Sudan is actually chronicling migration from Yemen to West Africa in Timbuktu, where people are able to do the same thing. It goes on to say, Himyar was a kingdom in what would be modern day Yemen, okay, and was in power from 110 BCE to 525 CE. That's a long stretch of time. That's a long stretch of time. And this is a big migration. Again, these are people who lost the war. The Himyarite king was actually oppressing the Christians over there in Arabia, and the Ethiopians weren't vibing that. And so there was a big migration over to West Africa. It wasn't a small one. It goes on to say Judaism was the state religion of Himyar since around circa 380. Right? Himyar also conquered the Hadramaut region of Yemen and the neighboring Sabian kingdom. Now, the Hadramaut was the region that the Lemba say they went to. That they went from the Babylonian captivity to the Hadramaut in Senna, and then they went from there to Mozambique, etc. So the Himyarite people were running the area that the Lember were at. The same time the Lember were there. The same time the Lember were there. Going forward. So this is the Himyarite kingdom on the right. This is not Senna. Senna's over here. This is a different place, Sana. But the Tariq al-Sudan is chronicling a migration from here over to this place here. Here's Timbuktu, and here's Kokia. Here's Kokia. And this is what it also has to go on and say. And so it says the Tariq al-Sudan chronicles that after Zuwa al-Yaman, there was 14 rulers in Kokia before the rise of Islam. There were 14 Zua rulers of Kokia before the rise of Islam. So they didn't come over with like, so if they came over from a Jewish kingdom, from an Israelite kingdom, from an area that was practicing Christianity and Judaism, but they got removed by the Christians, right? Because they were persecuting the Christians, and for 14 rulers, right? They were doing whatever they were doing religiously before the rise of Islam. So just keep that in mind. Under the 15th Zua ruler, Zakosoi, there was a conversion to Islam in about 1000 to 110 AD. In the history of the Sudan, there are over 30 Zua rulers of Kokia chronicled. What became of the Zua rulers is not recorded. Is not recorded. So for almost 500 years prior to Islam, you have this population of people coming over from Yemen being chronicled in Mali. We also have the Tariq al-Fatash. It's another 17th century Timbuktu chronicle of the Songhai Empire from the period after the reign of Sani Ali, from circa 1493 to 1599. Also, like the Tariq al-Sudan, the Tariq al-Fatash also mentions the Mali Empire. In manuscript C of the Tariq al-Fatash, it chronicles a community called the Bani Israel that existed in Tindirma, Mali, circa 1402. Roughly the same time period my man's talking about the Christians. They were said to own 333 wells, had 7 leaders, and if you look at their names, they have very, very, very Hebrew names like Yusuf, etc., etc., etc. I'll break that one down tomorrow on the live stream and whatnot. But they also had an army of 1,500 men. 1,500 men. So these were a well-established people. Tindirma is in the modern Timbuktu region of Mali. So I showed you where Kokia was. This is Mali, but this little red spot over here is where Tindirma is at. So you see where Timbuktu is at in relation. And Tindirma is right there. Right off the river. Last but not least, I'm going to throw this one out there. And there's a lot more information. I'm just trying to keep this one short and sweet for the family. Many know about the Jewish expulsion of Spain in 1492 with the Alhambra decree, where Jews were forced to either convert to Catholicism or be expelled. I'm bringing this up because this has to do with Mali now. However, many are not aware that also in 1492, the Soninke leader Askia Muhammad I, also called Askia the Great, who had come into power in the Timbuktu region, issued a similar decree of either convert or leave to the Jews/Israelites of the area, making Judaism illegal in the area. So not only in 1492 were the Jews getting expelled from Spain, but the same thing was popping off in Mali at the time. You got Israelites in Mali getting the same treatment. So they either converted to Islam, which becomes historically important to understand going forward in understanding the slave trade, or they migrated someplace else, which also becomes historically important to understand. Particularly if you don't know what happened to some of the previous leaders, right? And he was talking about the Zulu people. But on the just real quick, family. So on the right is a picture of Kohen Hamendishe. Again, a man who's been on this channel, Alemba Kohen, who broke down the migration pattern that they had going from Babylon to Yemen to Mozambique, etc., to Zimbabwe, etc. Now on the left we have a Mande man from Mali. Those colors and breakdown look strikingly similar, don't they? They look real familiar, don't they? My man's in Mali and potentially is descended from that same migration from Yemen. So we see how the brother on the right, again, they come from Yemen, right? But we see how they phenotypically have blended in to many of the people of Africa around them. And the same thing to the brother on the west, or on the left. It's we can see where there's a migration would happen from Yemen. It could very easily blend in, particularly over centuries. Again, we're talking almost 500 years before the rise of Islam, where they converted. Anyway, family, I'm going to stop it right there. See if there's any quick questions in the chat. Shout out to everybody listening. Oh, I see my man's in the chat. Shout out to Elder Yara. Shout out to Elder Yara. Shout out to Sister E. Hold on, let me see if people want to jump on right quick. I'm gonna put this one out there. I got a few minutes. I can make this like a half-hour stream if people want to jump on. Elder Yara, if you want to jump on, go ahead. Sister, if you want to jump on, go ahead. But yeah, I thought this was real interesting, particularly when Adam Coleman was talking about respecting the traditions in West Africa. Because if the Israelite tradition is in West Africa, shouldn't that also be equally respected along with the Christian tradition? That's a very, very realistic question to ask. Not to mention, I'm going to show a little bit more tomorrow about what the urban apologists are talking about concerning trying to connect like the East African Christian tradition to the West African tradition. Again, a very plausible concept. Particularly when they're trying to talk about what kind of Christianity our people should be practicing in America, etc. I'm noticing that from a certain group of urban apologists, they're trying to lean heavily on this African concept of Christianity. Now, when I heard that, I was like, well, yo, that sounds like a lot of mine. Like, so for instance, like a sister in the chat, right? She's heard me say this, and a lot of people heard me say this. Like, a lot of the Israelites in America are basically they're like one step from being Ethiopian Christians. Ethiopian Christianity is the most Israelite or the most Jewish out of all traditions. And I'm gonna really jump into this when I start talking about the Gullah tradition in a second, and the Geechee tradition, because you can really see an overlap. But yeah, so we have Israelites, people claiming to be Israelites in America, practicing a tradition that's real close to the Ethiopian tradition. But the urban apologists are still beefing with them over a lot of stuff. I'm trying to figure out how that works. Particularly now when they're citing information, trying to legitimize Christianity in West Africa. And those same sources talk about Israelites in West Africa all day long. And talks about how some may have had to convert to Islam, etc., etc., etc. Which, like I said, becomes real interesting when you look at the historical context thereof. But I'm going to keep this one short and sweet, family. Like I said, I'm going to go in depth more tomorrow. If you're not familiar with Dana Marnici, look her up on YouTube. Please subscribe to her channel. She has a lot of fantastic information And I'm actually really happy that the urban apologists are starting to dive into the Islamic sources concerning Christianity, etc. Because the Islamic side of things is kind of my wheelhouse. People will hear me say all the time that I deal with the Bible and the Quran, that I descend from Israelites and from Muslims and whatnot. And you can see where they kind of blend here in a second, and kind of with some of the sources that I've shown already. But I'm going to be showing a further blend going in the future. But with that, I'm happy that I finally that they kind of opened up the door a little bit for people like me and other people to talk about how the Islamic sources actually confirm Israelite presence in West Africa. Because a lot of people are used to using Christian sources or Roman and Greek sources, etc., or post-colonial sources. But a lot of people aren't familiar with how the Muslim sources and the Arabic sources chronicled Israelites from Arabia to West Africa. I'm talking straight chronicled the thing. So shout out to the urban apologists community, because we now get to really get into that information, and it's now very viable because the urban apologists are now citing the same information to try to legitimize Christianity in West Africa. And to be clear, family, I'm not here saying that they're wrongly doing so. Christianity was definitely in West Africa. We can see that historically. We can see that in the Congo, and we can see that in the Kingdom of Mali and other places if they look for it. And I actually like the question of what kind of Christianity was it? Was it an African Christianity? What were their beliefs, etc.? I love that conversation. I think it should be had more often. So I'm not denigrating that in any way, shape, or form. What I am saying is I appreciate your family, because now we get to look into the same sources to see what they say about other things. So with that, family, I say Shabbat Shalom, and peace and love.
Thank you.